and we should be live. Hey everyone, I'm here with Alistair again, and again we have a video where Alistair is the main character.
Yes, so thanks, Bo, for having me back on your channel again, and hello to all your audience. This is now turning into a bit of a series as I continue on my Bolt Action version 3 journey of extreme listing. Now, I think the last time we all spoke, or you listened or viewed, I was talking about Panzers. Panzer 3s, there was 5 of them. It was a tank platoon. I had the best fun using it during playtesting and during tournaments. After the events, I really struggled to find what could beat it. What could beat 5 Panzers? And I really had to go to the drawing board, and I have come up with an answer. I have made a PowerPoint presentation, and I'm going to talk you through it. This is another piece of the puzzle of the rock, paper, scissors. So,
Yes.
Panzers beat... Well, look, we know what
Panzers
Panzers
beat
beat. We talked
infantry,
about that last.
right. Yeah.
Panzers beat infantry, and Panzers can beat a balanced list. What beats Panzers? Bo, have you got the PowerPoint presentation ready?
I have got the PowerPoint, and I'm bringing it up. Just a sec. Here we go.
Oh, don't start with the last one.
Oh well, it's the damn slideshow. It doesn't want to go here.
We're doing a slideshow, guys.
Air power.
Air power. Yes. So we're talking about air power, and we're talking about air observers. Now, I'm aware that Bo has produced a lot of videos on his channel recently. I am probably going to disagree with some of the things that he's been saying, just because that's my experience. And so, air power is what I have decided is the next step in the rock, paper, scissors puzzle. It's my quest, my journey. So before I get into it, you can see the list, which I'll talk through in a moment. I am completely wrong in everything I'm saying, but I am also completely right. This is my experience. I'm sharing it with Bo's viewers, and if people can take something away from it, then that's great. So the list that I drafted, it was based upon the World Team Championship Army List construction criteria. So it's 1,100 points. And that's the criteria. 1,100 points, build your lists. So I started with a rifle platoon. I got a platoon commander. Sorry, I should say this is an American army list. But of course,
which is where you want to build the air observer list.
Air power list, yep. Yeah. The air power list should be built for America.
Yeah.
So platoon commander, regular, 2 6-man rifle squads, regular, and 1 air observer, regular. And then I doubled that. So 2 rifle platoons, doubled that. I was using this army list as an experiment with recce platoons. So I selected a recce platoon with a company commander. That should read 1 6-man regular squad with 2 rifles and 4 submachine guns, a 3/4-ton truck with a medium machine gun, and it comes with, you have to buy recce for it because it's a recce platoon, and an air observer. And I doubled that. So then I progressed to a tank platoon, just a little one. It's got an early war Stuart, a DACA Stuart, as is the common phrase now, and it had a Jeep with a heavy machine gun and a pintle mount. So that totaled 18 order dice, 1,100 points. Apologies for the little error in the recce platoon there. It is just 1 6-man squad.
And people at home, I want you to notice something very, very, very surprising here. Alistair's building an air power list, and he has got flak in it.
Yes. We're going to talk about that as the slides progress, but as it stands right now in this list, I've got 3 flak weapons, 2 pintle-mounted MMGs and 1 pintle-mounted HMG, all on soft-skin transports. But yes, I apologise, it's just the 1 6-man squad, and should anybody sort of query that recce platoon, is completely legal. The truck has got an 8-man capacity. It can carry the 6-man infantry squad, the platoon commander, and the air observer as a self-contained unit. So that's fine. What was the goal of the army? As I sort of alluded to, Can it beat 5 Panzers? I believe it can. But the overall goal of the army is to deal out pins and limit and contain your opposition. So you want to, by putting pins out, and I'm very much aware that, even this morning I was listening to Bo's voice on a video, and people say that pins don't matter. Pins do matter a lot, and they limit enemy strategic options. With this list, this Air Power American list, there's the potential there to pin units out of the game if they cannot be outright destroyed. And by outright destroyed, I mean shoot a gun, blow it up, shoot some bullets, kill some guys. You can actually, with this list, you can pin units out. And this is why I've started this presentation slightly differently than the last one. I need to talk about the army and the tactics that get employed before talking about the games. And I never learned everything. I never learned this until I'd played the games. So I need to go back to the start. And Bo, you can testify, I have never presented a list like this to you ever in the years that we've known each other.
Nope.
So I am
Not
so
ever.
far.
I mean, the lists that you've been building all through version 2 were very balanced lists. And you were on quests here in V3 to go completely nuts and dive deep into different aspects of the game.
I'm taking myself so far out of my own wargaming sort of comfort zone, and I'm loving every minute of it. Why, though? The question was, why does Air Power work now? And one of the key reasons is that the rookie pilot. So when you roll a 1 for the aircraft coming in, what's changed is that the target unit, your opponent gets to choose a new target within 12 inches of the original, and then the aircraft comes in. So it's no longer going to automatically bounce straight back to you onto one of your units. And when we talk more about the tactics of placement, if you've placed it correctly and at the right time, you are never actually going to have that aircraft bounce back on you. And now what it means is that that aircraft will come in on a 1 and on a 4+. So there's more opportunities for the aircrafts to actually arrive. The pins, so we already know that you put a marker out for the aircraft arriving, and that creates a bubble. And we're going to talk about bubbles in a moment. And then there's the bubble around the target. It used to be D3 -1 pins for every unit. Now it is a full D3 pins. So there are more pins on offer. And that is why I believe Air Power works better now. And I took the opportunity, and I've started doing this a lot in all of my games, that there's a portion of an army that's an experiment. And in this one, it's the recce platoon. Just because there must be a purpose to it. There truly must be a purpose to the recce platoon, and I would really like to find out. But there is one purpose, and there was one other motivation for the use, and it was access to air observers. Now, the observers are available in your rifle platoons. Minimum requirement is a CO and 2 infantry squads. For a platoon, a recce platoon, your minimum requirement is a CO, only 1 infantry squad, but you must have a transport. If you minimize the points values in terms of taking inexperienced trucks, there is a cost saving there to get an air observer on the table, as opposed to taking them through a rifle platoon. I never explored it. I never had to exploit the cost saving. I was happy to take the regular truck with weapons, regular squads. Players would already be able to see that this list can be stressed more. And I believe it could be stretched to the point where you could get a 5th air observer in.
Yeah, I think
but we don't need that. But we don't need that today. And I guess extreme listing is what I'm doing. People will call it spamming, but I'm not min-maxing it in terms of I am not paying the bare minimum to get something. And there's a reason for that. There's a reason that the other troop choices are regular, and that will come into play as we talk through. So how does Air Power work? And it's all about creating the bubbles, and that's just this silly term that I dreamed up when I was doing this PowerPoint. And we should click on to the next slide, excuse me, to talk about the bubbles.
And here we see them.
And there's a little picture. So I extracted this picture from my files, and this is a game from the Megatron 3000 from this year, which I've decided to use. So assuming that you've, the game started, you've got deployment, there's units on the table. Excuse me. The first thing you have to do is pick your target for your first airstrike. What you should be prioritizing your targets is enemy flak, if there is any. And so what we've got with that picture is in the black circle is your first target. And then within 18 inches of that, roughly, you will see a line when that'll take you to a black circle with a cross. That's the aircraft marker. So that's you set up the two bubbles. The target bubble, and then where the aircraft arrives. For the next air observer, you cross them over. So the red circle intersects where the black aircraft comes in, and the red aircraft intersects the black aircraft's target. Repeat this. Now, with 4 air observers, 4 shots, I would have, and I have done this now live, I have had 4 aircraft crossing over each other so that it can generate these 2 bubbles, these 2 spheres of influence, where every unit, and they're not perfect, they don't align perfectly, but there is enough crossover where every unit will get 4 D3 pins should all the aircraft arrive. Spoiler alert, I have seen it happen. And it is devastating. So
would you have
it's
like if you had 4 shots with the observers here, would you first go black circle non-cross to black circle crossed, and then red circle non-crossed to red circle crossed, and then the next 2 shots would be crosses first, and then going to the uncrossed circles?
Just crisscross, so that within each sphere of influence, so where the 2 in the picture, where you see the 2 bubbles, the black cross and the red circle, within that area, there'll physically be 2 airstrikes that'll happen in there.
Yeah.
So the airstrikes will generate D3 pins, and from the other side, there'll be aircraft coming in. So they are literally just crisscrossing each other to generate these 2 spheres of influence. And so there's a D3 pins within 6 inches of the target, and the same within 6 inches of the aircraft markers themselves. So that's the bubbles. That's the sort of what I've deemed in my head as the standard aircraft tactic when you've got multiple aircraft coming in on one turn. So we'll do the next slide and see what nonsense I'm talking there. Oh goodness, we go straight to the games. Good.
Yeah.
So I'm taking a similar format to last time. Game 1 was against Armies of Great Britain, and it was a sectors style deployment with sectors style scoring. I don't use the new terminologies for the V3 missions yet, but everybody gets the idea.
Yeah.
Yep, sure, whatever. Land grab. You fancy new kids. We're playing sectors. And up against Great Britain. So it was a medium order dice count. It had 2 rifle platoons, an armour platoon, and a heavy support platoon. And I plucked out some of the key elements there. So there was a Crusader AA. There was an actual Crusader proper tank. There was the Kangaroo transport with pintle-mounted HMG. Lots of veterans. And, excuse me, there were lots of multiple small units. So lots of light mortars. There was Piats. There was medium mortars from the heavy support platoon. So I think there was a sniper, and obviously there was an artillery observer as well. So it was a deployment style mission with forward observers. So I did what I've deemed here now as the standard tactical deployment, and it is keeping the recce units off board. So those have got flak, so I cannot have them running about, causing issues. And I held back the Stuart on board, but well out of sight. And then it was a matter of waiting for the airstrikes to resolve before pushing forward the center board. And what happened here was that my opponent did not get the chance to engage in any form of strategy at all.
Wow.
My observers were on the board on turn 1 because they forward deployed, and they just started calling in airstrikes. Now, I know that a little bit later on in this presentation, I'm going to talk about target selection. I'll say it here. The targets don't matter. They just don't. You just don't matter.
Because you're pinning everything in those bubbles, and yeah.
Yep, the target doesn't matter. If you can see a unit, fire at it. As long as it's within the sphere of influence, as long as it's within one of the bubbles that you're trying to create, just shoot it. If it's a light mortar, I don't care. If it was a tank, who cares? The only proper thing you've got to think about is how they resolve, what order you resolve them in. And you want to resolve attacks against flak units first, because even if you don't destroy them, you put the pin on them so that when they react again for the next aircraft, they will they'll be at an extra -1, so they'll be hitting on a 6. That's the only time you really have to think about what order you want to do it in. So that first game, it was a standard sort of tactical game where I think off the top of my head, I got 6 out of 8 airstrikes in. One observer died before he could call his second airstrike in, and one was driven off by flak fire from the Crusader AA. So 6 out of 8.
That's a pretty good hit rate for those air observers.
Yep. And what happened there was, within that sort of key takeaways from that first game, I was pinning units out. His entire battle line could not move. They just didn't move. Just because they were racking up so many pins. And there's another tactic that's going to come up later in the presentation, but sometimes you just need one more pin to tip a unit over. And those one more pins were generated by the Stuart. They were generated by the HMG Jeep with the long range. They were also generated by the 6-man regular infantry squads. Because being American, they get 1 extra shot for every 3 guys. So 6 riflemen, 8 shots. And because they were regular, they've got a better chance at hitting. Yeah. And during this game, one more pin happened, I think, at least 3 times. He had an inexperienced rifle squad. The Crusader AA got pinned out. It did not get destroyed outright. It got pinned out. The Crusader tank itself got destroyed properly. And then it was just small units got vacuumed up. Inexperienced light mortars, they do not like airplanes flying over them.
No, they do not.
Nope. So I know that one got pinned out just by aircraft flying over it. It never actually took weapons fire. It just ran. So yes, those massed inexperienced small units, they made for lots of good targets to quickly generate the bubbles, and they ran away because the planes flew over them. So it was a win.
Game number 2.
Now, game 2 was long table edge, first wave, kill points with forward deployment. And I was up against a high order dice count British Army with 3 rifle platoons. So they had 3 artillery observers, 3 snipers, 3 quite chunky units of Gurkhas, excuse me, but then backed up by multiple small units, anti-tank rifles, light mortars, the officers, small, cheap infantry squads to fill up that sort of minimum requirement, but absolutely no flak, none at all. But what did happen here was that my opponent outnumbered me with forward observers, with forward deployment, and I won the dice off. I got to pick the table side. He made his choices and I made some outflanking choices. Then when it came time to forward deploy, I chose not to deploy anything. This was simply because with 3 snipers, I would lose. In my head, I thought I'm going to lose at least 2 of these observers to enemy sniper fire, just because with the artillery observers, he can deploy them first, should the dice draw out the bag go against them. But at some point, those snipers would be able to draw a line at my observers and shoot them. So I elected to have them in my first wave. So during my first wave, I was able to bring other infantry squads on and engage the enemy snipers to put pins on them. But in the end, I did have to bring the observers on in sort of less than optimal positions, but I could still see enough units to make the standard strategy work. What it did was that it delayed the aircraft coming in. So I had to bring observers on, walk them on in turn 1, find lines of sight, fire them on turn 2, aircraft start flying in on turn 3.
Yeah.
The standard tactic, though, I kept the recce units on outflank, just to make sure there was no flak on the board. So I didn't bring them on until I think a good number of the aircraft had resolved themselves. But what we did find in this game was that 4 American air observers and 3 British artillery observers caused absolute carnage. Absolutely mauled each other in terms of order dice kills. It was absolutely lethal. But from memory, I only got 6 out of the 8 air observers came in. And that was because he did kill 2 of the air observers before they got their second shots off. And they actually
did get
died.
second shots off, so that's always something.
Oh yeah, absolutely. Yeah. There was no, couldn't stop them all. So it was 6 out of 8 aircraft arrived. And I would have to say from memory, 2 of them were rookie pilots. And my opponent engaged in a tactic whereby he was able to move one of the targets 6 inches away from some of the friendly models. I think it was an officer. I could see an officer. And, I was just like, target him. Yep, who cares? He was able to move him 6 inches away, but the luck was against him. I rolled a 1. It was a rookie pilot, so then he had to
jog back.
Yep, he had to move it back within 12 inches, so it was back within the bubble. So it was it was both luck and unluck. But again, the aircraft were there. So yeah, it was another win, and I was really satisfied with that one. So game 3 was again against Great Britain.
Oh wow, you played lots of Brits.
Yep, 3 Brits. So we had a long table edge deployment with objectives to grab, and it was fog of war. So everything coming on from whatever board edge you want. It's worth noting here, though, that we played the fog of war version from one of the missions where you do not follow an enemy unit on. So you cannot. It's the same from version 2.
Yeah.
If an enemy unit comes on through a board edge, you cannot come on that board edge until an enemy unit has come on another one.
Yeah. Makes it a little less chaotic, doesn't it?
Yeah, the entire tournament was happy to play it that way, and it should be noted that there are 2 written versions of it in the version 3 rulebook. One from the sort of, these are the generic rules for a game, but then it's built in within missions, and it's written differently. So anyway, but another British Army. This was a medium order dice count, so somewhere up around 16 or 18. It was 2 rifle platoons and 1 armor platoon. So again, the Crusader AA made an appearance. I noticed that he made good use of Bren carriers with Piats and platoon commanders in it. And so for fog of war, that was especially dangerous for vehicles that I had. But he did have veteran infantry and an armored car, just a generic, armor 7 light autocannon sort of thing. So, so what I found with this one was that I think he only deployed 4 units, and he had a lot in reserve for fog of war. I deployed quite a bit more to have it on the board because I wanted to get to the objectives first.
Okay.
And so what that meant was that the first 4 airstrikes, I used what I've now deemed the standard tactics for aircraft. And I was able to crisscross them over these 4 units, and that kept them engaged. I think I destroyed 3 out of the 4 of them as the aircraft arrived and pinned and controlled another one. And that meant that each air observer had one airstrike left to call in, and I used that as reaction fire to fog of war. So I was able to get a good location in the middle of the board, excuse me, in dense terrain, so hard-covered, dense terrain, can see in and out. And so as units arrived, I was able to use the air observers as fire support. And I've written down here, I made at least 2 danger close air calls where I had friendly units which were in the bubbles. So they were going to be risking a rookie pilot, but they were in trouble and they needed an airstrike to dig them out. One of them was a unit, a recce unit that had come on from a board edge and got swamped by other enemy units coming on. Airstrike came in. Lo and behold, it was a heavy howitzer shot, and I was able to adjust the template and wipe out everything that was threatening them. It was an absolute miracle. And another one, it was my Stuart that was in trouble, and I needed to call in an airstrike and deal out some pins. So again, though, the standard tactics worked, and with units on ambush, it was that one last pin that was able to push enemy units off the edge. And I know that in this particular game, the enemy armored car, he was pinned out. I think to do that, I brought on my heavy machine gun. It took some sort of additional damage, and then it fled, and then it got hit within a bubble. Then it got hit by an airstrike, and I didn't have to roll the damage. It just as soon yep, pinned out, and it was pretty lethal. So again,
like
it was a win. A win for that. So the takeaways for Airpower, the pins actually do matter in Bolt Action version 3. I cannot imagine how quickly this army would beat anybody with shirkers.
That would be really dangerous for the shirkers.
A shirker army would just melt away in no time. Vehicles with unreliable, yep, they would just melt away with an Airpower list pounding away at them. Pins matter, and just having the additional tools to just get that one more pin, because it's not just about having the aircraft to destroy things. And I'm going to say later on, an aircraft actually destroying a unit is actually quite hard. I'll talk about that in one moment. But it's having the other elements in the army to push those enemy units over the edge with that one more pin. So the rifle units, you can't have them as inexperienced. They need to be able to shoot properly.
Yeah.
The Stuart tank.
Would you put LMGs in them just to have the longer range another time, do you think?
It would depend on how the points could play out.
Yeah.
Because then at some point you're taking points away from an area that you might not necessarily have.
Yeah.
The Stuart being able to split fire was excellent, and I'll share that thought in another video about the Stuart. But the heavy machine gun on the Jeep, absolutely invaluable, and same again for the MMGs on the trucks. So if you were able to have those safely at range away from the aircraft coming in, they will put those extra pins to tip those units over the edge, because in version 3, now that we know very clearly that hitting enemy units is very easy. It's very easy to do. Killing can be difficult, but hitting is easy. Putting a pin on is easy. And when you've just had 4 aircraft fly overhead, or as I truly like to think, a flight of B-17 bombers at one point, one more pin is tipping them over the edge.
Yeah.
I made a comment a moment ago, though, that actually killing a unit outright with an air observer is hard. And it is hard because you roll for the aircraft to come in, and then you roll for the type of aircraft that it actually is.
Yeah.
And as soon as you know what type of aircraft it is, your opponent gets the choice to go down. So if it's
so even if you get the heavy howitzer, you can still half the number of hits you take.
So you automatically half the number of hits that you're going to take. Yeah. So if you fail to wound on one of them, then your opponent hasn't lost half their units, so they don't have to check. The ground attack that gives you 2d6 hits. If you go down again, that can be half. That actually does help you kill a unit a bit more. But, and this is where I'm not going to contradict myself, but when you've chosen to target that light mortar with 2 men, and the heavy howitzer shot comes in, and they go down, and you fail that dice roll, don't feel bad about it, because you're not actually trying to kill units. You're creating the bubbles and creating the pins. So that light mortar has taken D3 pins for being attacked by an aircraft. Then it's taken another D3 pins for being hit by a heavy howitzer. So potentially it's on 6 pins and it's inexperienced. Just push them over the edge, or wait for the other aircraft as part of the bubble to zip past, and they disappear. Don't stress it if you don't kill them with aircraft, because that's not their goal. You want to pin them out. So does the target matter? I truly don't think it is. You're just a massive pin generating machine.
Yeah.
But then I've got that other line, flak management.
Yeah.
This is where, and if
but it sounds like you actually broke the like had the idea of how to do that, because that has always been the worst thing, hasn't it?
Yep. So flak management. When you look at the 3 armies I played, now I can only talk about the games I've played and the armies I've played against. That's all. That's the only experience I've got.
Yeah.
I had more flak than each one of them in terms of raw numbers of shots. I had, 18 shots of flak. Granted, not as good as an autocannon. Those light autocannon crusaders. But in terms of raw numbers of shots, I had more flak than my opponents. So I had to make sure that was managed, because I do need those guns to do something. So it's a matter of keeping them off board, or you keep them tucked away in your back line, and you're careful about where you place your aircraft markers. Can it beat 5 Panzers? This air power list would have devastated my World Open War 5 Panzer list. No problem. I don't even need to test it to know that it wouldn't have stood a chance. Absolutely would not have stood a chance. So
is that because you have to run the 5 Panzers pretty close to each other, so you would get pinned out with a lot of them very easily, do you think?
Even if they were spread out, at some point the bubbles would be created, and it might be hard to kill a small team of 2 infantrymen. It's easy to kill a tank with a heavy howitzer shot.
Yeah, it is.
Very easy. So killing the tanks would be no problem at all. And there's no flak, and there couldn't be any flak in that list, because it just wouldn't fit what the goal was. So that's my takeaways from air power. I'm sure there's another slide though.
Yep.
Aha. So the other side of the table, I did want to say what the other side of the table. So what do the opponents of this list need to do? Now, that picture that you can see on your screen, that is the order dice kills from the game where there was the British air observers. Britain are in silver, America are in blue.
You killed 17 of his units.
Absolutely devastated the armies.
Wow.
Yep. That was air power.
Yeah.
So on the other side of the table, sorry, I should say, and this is a comment not to boost my own ego, but over the course of the tournament, over the course of the 3 games, I killed 45 order dice, and I have never, ever, ever killed that many order dice before in a game, in a tournament. I think part of that might lend itself to version 3, because there are just physically more order dice on the table.
Yes.
But I think, again, air power kills a lot of stuff. It really does. So from my opponents on the other side of the table, or if you play against something like this, it's very obvious to say target the observers. They shoot twice, so you might have to accept that you're going to get hit by 4 airstrikes, but you don't really want to get hit by 8. Something I saw my opponents do when a unit was targeted by them, they would move the squad forward towards me, which I thought was odd because they're obviously hoping that if a 1 is rolled, they can adjust the target to another unit, one of my own units. What I would say, and if you have it, is run towards your own flak unit. The closer you are to your flak unit means that the aircraft marker has to be within 18 inches of the target unit. So if you're physically closer to your flak unit, it's dragging the aircraft with it, and that's where your protection is. And that's what you have to focus on. It's the 18 inches from the target unit. That is the key measurement where you need to be able to influence. So it's not a matter of having your flak almost right beside your army. It's having the flak positioned in a way that it can cover that extended bubble where the aircraft is actually going to come in. Because there were moments when I had my own flak on the table that I had to put the aircraft in a really dumb position that it dealt out no pins, but it still came in. And that was what was important to me, is the aircraft got there. I didn't try to get greedy. And the other spot, the obvious one, is if you want to stop aircraft, have flak.
Yeah.
Just have flak in your army. It's a whole other discussion, which I don't think I have in this PowerPoint, that you how much flak do you need?
Yeah.
That's a discovery for somebody else.
Yeah.
I don't
Well,
care.
for this kind of a position, I think you need a lot of flak.
Not my discussion to have.
But yeah.
Not for this video. But the bonus thought there, the recce platoon. Don't think of it as a platoon. Think of it as a combination of units. And what I mean by that is that whatever vehicle you get should only be one vehicle, one squad, a support element, and the platoon CO. They go together on the board. Because I outflanking with that truck with the infantry squad and the platoon commander, I rolled an 11 once to bring it on the board, and guess what? It came on. No -1 for being American, +2 for having the platoon commander in there. I'm coming in.
Yep.
It's a self-contained push unit. So if you look, sometimes if you're building a rifle platoon and you've decided to give a half track, you've brought a half track in, take the half track out. If you can, take an infantry squad out, find some points, and just create a recce platoon, and then it gives you that extra option of having recce on the vehicle. Because when you do recce, you can elect to choose to run or to advance, and if you choose to advance with it, your troops can get out after it's recce'd. That's a thing.
Yeah.
So at the moment, that is the bare minimum usefulness I've found for a recce platoon. And before anybody asks, did I recce with my trucks? No.
No.
But I didn't recce
so
with
maybe
them
not actually
because they were
buy recce for the recce vehicles?
They have to have recce.
They do? Okay.
You have to buy recce for your transports. Okay. The only reason I didn't do it was because I had mine off board, because I needed to keep the flak off the board. So conclusions. The rock, paper, scissors quest continues.
Yeah.
So tanks beat infantry. Tanks beat balanced lists. Air power beats tanks. Air power beats balanced lists. So the mix, I've said it before, the mixed bag armies are going to suffer in general due to the specialized nature of the tanks. I haven't got a cute name for the tanks, but tank power, air power.
Panzers.
There's just not going to be enough. So my next step now is, what can beat air power? What, not just, and I know that people are just going to say, oh, just take lots of flak, Ali. Hey, solved. That will help you defend against the air power, but will it beat it? And that's the
going to go looking for a way to get a lot of snipers, or yeah, interesting one.
The beautiful thing about it is, though, I don't care if whatever I come up with, I don't care if tanks beat it, because I'm not trying to beat tanks. I'm trying to beat air power. And then that circle of rock, paper, scissors starts properly.
Yep.
I cannot stress again how enthusiastic I am about airplanes. It is an absolutely just I had phenomenal fun. I honestly can't say if my opponents had fun, but it is something that it's new. I
It's
enjoyed using it.
definitely new. Yeah.
And I guess another sort of final closing thought. I wouldn't have done any better at World Open War with this list than with my tanks. I think my results would have been the same. 4 wins, a draw, and a loss.
Yeah.
They would have different opponents would have got different results. But air power wouldn't have generated me any more than the tank did. So I'm not trying to get more. I'm just trying to beat what's gone before.
Brilliant. Ali, thank you so much for the thoughts here and for the tutorial. Yeah, let's see what you come up with.
Yeah, it might be a bit of a gap between videos as we're going into winter now. There are no more tournaments, and I don't know if my gaming friends want to be experimented upon. But time will tell. But I have a few ideas as to what can beat air power, and I will hopefully share them with you in the near future.
Yeah, get back to us. Right, everyone, that was it. That is the ideas for how to use your American Air Service. Americans especially, because the double tap is what really makes this list, isn't it?
It is.
Yeah. Anywho, maybe we should do one on the Brits as well, the British forward artillery observers at some point.
That I might not be the best one to do that.
Oh, maybe I should.
Maybe you should, because I'm on my own journey, mate, and I'm not going to stop off at Great Britain.
You shouldn't. Right, that was it. Thank you all, and we will see you next time.